Hello everyone. My name is Miyuki. This channel introduces things you should know about Japan and Japanese people for those who are interested in Japanese culture and customs, and those who are thinking about traveling to Japan. I provide information unique to Japan, such as culture, food, art, lifestyle, and tourism. The other day, I went on a drive with a friend. My friend was visiting Japan for 2 weeks, and I showed her around. Partway through the drive, she said she wanted to try driving, so we decided to switch. However, she had a lot of trouble with the unfamiliar right-hand drive. The thing that confused her the most was, of course, driving on the left side of the road. I've experienced this myself. When I was driving a friend's car in Los Angeles, USA, it was fine when we were driving straight, but when we turned at intersections, I was confused every time about which way to go. My friend next to me kept yelling right, right. What's more, there's this mysterious rule that says it's okay to turn right even when the light is red, and sometimes that's not even possible. Every time I turned right, I had to check with my friend next to me if it was okay to turn. So, today's topic is why Japan drives on the left side of the road. First, we looked into the current situation regarding left-hand traffic and right-hand traffic around the world. We extracted traffic rules from 231 countries and regions, including 193 countries and 38 regions around the world, and investigated whether they adopt right-hand traffic or left-hand traffic on roads. Looking at this, we can see that over 70% of countries drive on the right, making it the overwhelming majority. Looking at the map more closely, we notice something else. That is the United Kingdom. Areas that were once British colonies or where British influence was strong drive on the left. Looking even more closely, we find 2 exceptions. Thailand and Japan. Neither country was under British colonial rule. In Thailand, during a period of modernization, the country adopted the British system, which was cutting edge at the time for road construction, and this is apparently why they adopted the left-hand drive system. This makes one wonder why Japan, which was not under British rule or influence, also adopts the left-hand drive system. So which is more rational for humans? Looking back through history, there are records that driving on the left was practiced during the Roman Empire. As about 90% of the population was right-handed, it was customary to drive on the left side when passing strangers, as it was better to have your right hand available in case of an emergency. The reason Britain drives on the left side is that many drivers were right-handed when operating their wagons, so they would pull their vehicles over to the left side of the road when swinging their whips with their right hand to avoid hitting pedestrians or oncoming vehicles. As a result, it was more convenient to drive on the left side. Horses are also ridden on the left side, as their swords would get in the way otherwise. Therefore, it makes more sense to ride on the left side of the road rather than riding a horse in the middle of the road. Until the Middle Ages, driving on the left was the norm in European countries as well. So why does all of Europe, except for Britain, drive on the right? There are records that show that people switched to driving on the right during the French Revolution. The person who ordered this change was Napoleon. Since ancient times, when soldiers attacked, it was common for them to attack from the left side of the enemy camp, with the battle taking place in a clockwise direction, as most soldiers were right-handed. However, Napoleon won the war with a surprising tactic of moving counterclockwise. This gave rise to the theory that Napoleon was left-handed. The reason continental Europe began driving on the right side of the road was after the Napoleonic Wars in the early 18th century. During Napoleon's heyday, he controlled most of continental Europe. Various systems created by France were transferred to the continental European countries that came under his control. Napoleon also built roads, and in the process, right-hand driving was adopted. There is another theory that says Napoleon was left-handed, which is why Europe decided to drive on the right side of the road. However, this appears to be a myth. Its influence continued to be widespread. Britain was not ruled by Napoleon, so driving on the left side of the road remained. From here, driving on the right side of the road spread throughout the world. This was probably due to the influence of continental European countries, just like in the case of Britain. Well, it probably all started with France disliking Britain and rejecting British culture, so they deliberately changed the British style of driving on the left side of the road to driving on the right side. Why does America drive on the right side of the road even though it is an Anglo-Saxon country like Britain? During the American colonial period in the 17th and 18th centuries, there were no unified rules for traffic direction. In the eastern part of the country, such as Boston, where there were many British immigrants, people generally drove on the left side. However, in German, Dutch, and French settlements, driving on the right was common. In other words, at first, people's driving habits varied by region. Then the Revolutionary War broke out. After winning independence from Britain through war, America subsequently received aid from France. It is said that driving on the right side was also chosen as an anti-British symbol during this process. In 1784, the first law requiring people to drive on the right side was enacted in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Because the city was a key transportation hub, this rule spread to surrounding states. In the early 20th century, Ford's Model T appeared. This car had a left-hand drive. It seems that this was cheaper to manufacture. Furthermore, with a left-hand drive, driving on the right is more convenient for passing oncoming vehicles and checking for overtaking. This led to the complete establishment of right-hand driving in the United States. From here on, I will talk about Japan. In Japan, there is a Shinto etiquette called forward left, backward right. When moving forward, the left foot leads; when withdrawing back, the right foot leads. Walk on the left side of the approach to the shrine, bow at the torii gate, and step in with your left foot first. And, naturally, you walk on the left side of the approach to the shrine. When moving forward toward the god, start with your left foot, and when stepping back, start with your right foot. Also, when sitting in seiza at a shrine hall, you should stand up with your right foot first and sit down with your left foot first. Don't worry, you won't be scolded even if you get this wrong. The next time you go to pray, if you step over the torii gate with your left foot, it will be in accordance with the proper etiquette for approaching the gods. This can also be said of martial arts, where the human body is well constructed to step forward from the left. This Shinto etiquette is used in Kyudo as is. Also, when I said, stand with your right foot, sit with your left foot, the same can be said of Kendo. In Kendo, the bamboo sword is held in the left hand. So when sitting in seiza, you lower your left knee, then kneel, then bend your right knee, and when standing, you kneel and stand up. This Sazasayuki, left seat, right start, is a martial arts etiquette in which you sit with your left foot and stand with your right foot. This etiquette is thought to have originated from the days when samurai wore their swords on their left hips, allowing them to always keep their right foot up and in a position ready to move at any time, so that they could easily draw their sword in case of an unforeseen situation. This is when you are ready for battle, and if you do not wish to draw your sword, you hold the sword in your right hand, and this is called Wazasayuki. This left advance, right retreat etiquette is also applied as etiquette in other martial arts. This brings us to the topic of samurai. During the Edo period, samurai wore their swords on their left hips. If they walked on the right side of the road, their sword sheaths would clash with those of passing opponents, which could lead to fights. Therefore, it made sense to walk on the left side of the road to avoid swords clashing. This was the beginning of the custom of walking on the left side of the road. In picture scrolls and records from the late Edo period, there are cases where town officials' instructions to keep to the left when on bridges can be seen, and by at least the latter half of the Edo period, the de facto rule of driving on the left had been established. In fact, picture scrolls and ukiyo-e prints from the Edo period depicting scenes of people passing each other depict the direction of traffic and how people pass each other. When looking at these, we can see that people walking on the road are often depicted sticking to the left edge and tending to avoid the center when passing people coming in the opposite direction. Even in large-scale transportations such as processions, travels, and alternate attendance by daimyo, many compositions show people passing on either the left or right, and it is thought that this eventually became customary. It is also likely that as the backgrounds and road settings, post towns, bridges, highways, were developed, rules to avoid confusion when passing each other were unconsciously developed. Furthermore, during the Meiji period, Japan's first railway, between Shimbashi and Yokohama, was built in 1872 using British technology. Britain was a country that drove on the left side of the road, and as a result, Japanese railways also drove on the left side of the road. Railway design and operation rules directly influenced roads. Even when automobiles began to become more common in the early 20th century, trains and pedestrians were already driving on the left side of the road. In 1924, left-side driving was officially made law by Ministry of Home Affairs Ordinance. After World War II, under the American occupation, a proposal to drive on the right side of the road was briefly proposed, but it was shelved due to excessive confusion. So, Japan's custom of driving on the left side of the road was formed from three main factors. #Shinto manners. #martial arts etiquette. #samurai customs. Furthermore, with the introduction of railways from Britain during the Meiji period, left-hand driving was officially established.
Thank you, Miyuki. Hello everyone. This is Jay. From here on, I'll be providing some additional information. Railways, which were introduced in the UK, drive on the left side of the road, but let's take a look at the situation in other countries. It's interesting that in France, roads are driven on the right side of the road, but trains are driven on the left side. Well, I guess Napoleon's influence has faded in modern times. Incidentally, ships and planes are globally standardized on driving on the right side of the road. Ships have historically driven on the right side of the road, so aircraft have followed suit. The general rule is that both ships should give way when looking to the right, and when passing each other, they should turn right to avoid each other. In the world of ships, the left side of a ship is called the port side, and the right side is called the starboard side. Port side literally means port side. Passengers have traditionally boarded and disembarked from the left side of a ship, but with the development of airplanes in the 20th century, passengers also began to board and disembark from the left side of the aircraft, following the example of ships. There was once an area in Japan where people drove on the right. That area was Okinawa Prefecture. Okinawa was occupied by the United States from 1945, at the end of World War II. As a result, the same right-hand driving system as in the United States was applied. Even after Okinawa was returned to Japan in 1972, people continued to drive on the right for a while. It was not until 1978, 6 years after the return, that Okinawa Prefecture switched to driving on the left. Here's one more piece of information. In Japan, cars keep to the left, but pedestrians keep to the right. This is a legal requirement, and Japanese people are taught this from a young age. However, this is often misunderstood, even among Japanese people, and the purpose of this rule is to prevent accidents by pedestrians facing towards cars on roads where there is no distinction between the sidewalk and the roadway. However, there are no legal rules regarding sidewalks. So, while it doesn't matter which side you walk on the sidewalk, I think the reason most people walk on the left is because adult driver's licensed drivers have a habit of letting oncoming pedestrians walk to their right out of habit. Incidentally, it seems that Japanese stations generally recommend walking on the left side. However, if you don't know which way to walk, I think it's best to just go with the flow. Thank you for watching until the end. This channel will continue to provide information about Japan and Japanese people. We hope that this will be useful for anyone interested in Japan. So, please look forward to the next video. Well, goodbye.